everybody, and welcome back to Reason is Reality.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Steve.
I came across this article about Kim Davis being at the, what the hell was it? The
State of the Union.
Yeah, the State of the Union, thanks. I'm thinking, what in the hell is she doing there? So, apparently, she was upset because President Obama didn't talk about Christians or Christianity the way he talked about Muslims, only because, now let me stop and pause on that part, because he was talking about on the issue of ISIS and other extremists.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was the only parts that he was making.
Right.
And she was upset and felt that they were, Christianity and Christians in general were downgraded because he does not talk about them.
Well, we now know who invited Kim Davis to the State of the Union. After first denying it, Freedom Caucus Chairman Jim Jordan's office later admits they did. Our Jason Calvi was the only one to sit down with Davis after the president's speech.
I did agree with one remark that he made about we have to stand strong, help those that are less fortunate, and I think that is the basis of the Christian faith is the brotherly love,
Was there anything that you particularly didn't like what the president said tonight?
He had made the statement that everybody was free to marry who they love, and of course that's the stand that I stood against, and it was not, for me, it never was a gay or a lesbian issue. It was about standing up for the Word of God, and as God had defined marriage from the very beginning, is between one man and one woman, and that's what I stood for.
One of the points he mentioned was about Islam. Were you surprised that he brought that up?
Oh no. One of the things that he focused on was that we should not discriminate against Muslims or, and persecute them, but he never once said anything about the people of the Christian faith who are being so tried and tested and being mashed down, literally, with his agenda.
The fact of the matter is, he was talking about ISIS, or ISIL, as he says, but you can look both those up and see what the letters stand for. They're a little bit different, but mostly the same.
Right.
He was talking about a terrorist group that just happens to be Muslims. It's not he was talking about Muslims who are terrorists. He was talking about terrorists in general that happen to be Muslim.
Right.
And if they were anything else, then what would she think? Oh, he was talking about whatever, Hindus or, well, because...
Or the Catholics.
Or the Catholics or any
pagans,
other religion.
Which that would never happen, but...
Right, yeah, pagans usually don't do things like that.
No.
But, any group of terrorists that, even if they're homegrown terrorists, like the whole Timothy McVeigh thing with the Oklahoma City bombing, they were Christian, they were terrorists.
Right. So
that's when they make the news, but really they haven't made the news lately because of the things like ISIS and that, where that certain sect of the people that are absolute radicals and crazy, they actually are giving their religion a bad name, because there's a ton of Muslims out there that aren't that way, that are completely peaceful, that are like you and me or anyone else.
Right.
And they do their thing when they go to their temple and worship or whatever, they do their thing, and other than that, they're just regular citizens. It's the whole thing's kind of weird to me with the, three of the major religions, because, most people totally forget about Buddhists and Hindus.
Yeah.
And there's several types of Hindu, by the way.
Just like there's like umpteen thousand versions of Christianity.
Right. So, but they only think of really, talk is mostly about the three that all share the same beginning. because the Torah, for the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, the Torah starts with creation and Adam and Eve and everything. And in the Muslim faith, their book also starts with creation and Adam and Eve and the whole thing, the Genesis story. And so do the Christians. And in all of them, it says that God created the heavens and earth and everything, and created Adam and Eve, and so all three of their religions and their books start with the same exact God making the earth and the animals and Adam and Eve and all of that.
Right.
And then from there, it just splits off. And then because they all started going down this one direction, and then all of a sudden the Muslims become a religion and split off, and theirs goes a different way because of the Prophet Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Christians, they split off because this guy Yeshua was born and had great things to say about peace and love and don't hurt others.
I'm sorry not to cut you off, but isn't it a little bit hard to believe in a guy riding into the heavens on a horse?
I suppose. I don't know. I've never seen a flying horse, so when it says in the creation story that God created Adam and from the dirt of the earth, and then he made Eve from, people say, one of Adam's ribs, but that's not the way the original translation or the original thing was when it was in Greek or Latin. It said that God made Eve from one side of Adam,
right.
Or one half,
Right.
which didn't mean his side or his ribs. It meant one half of his DNA, because Adam's first wife, Lilith and Adam were both created from the dirt of the earth in that story, and they were equal. She wasn't half of Adam. She was her own independent female being, and he was his own independent female or male being.
Right.
And so therefore Adam and Lilith create Eve, so that half of Eve is from Adam, because one half from the father,
right.
and one half from the mother.
Right.
But they don't talk about Lilith because she got kicked out of the garden because she knew she was Adam's equal. She didn't have to obey him. She was her own free woman. And because she didn't want to obey Adam, she got kicked out of the Garden of Eden into the lands of Nod, east of Eden.
Ah.
So really, Eve is Adam and Lilith's daughter, and then Adam takes his own daughter as his new wife when she gets old enough to reproduce.
Well, that only makes sense that the whole incest thing happened, because even as the Bible states that, there's only Adam and Eve.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, there was Adam and Eve, and then they had, according to the Bible, they had 2 sons.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they just reproduce with their mother?
Well, one of the sons gets killed because there's Cain and Abel, and
Right.
then Cain kills Abel.
Right.
So then there's only one son, and then Cain gets banished into the lands of Nod with Lilith.
With technically his grandmother.
Yes, Lilith would have been his grandmother. Yeah, incestuous grandmother, but yeah. So then, so he gets banished, and then they have no kids. So they have another son, and
wait, the other another son.
Adam and Eve have another son named Seth.
Oh, okay.
And Seth is where all of humankind comes from after that, because Seth winds up having a son, and on Enoch
with his mom.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Where's the other female? And then Christians will say, "Oh, well, they never talk about the daughters they had. They only talk about
the story only goes to a brick wall, and like it kind of stops there."
Well, they just claim that they never talk about the daughters. They never list the daughters. They only list the males that were born after them.
Well, I think that's mainly because even up until present, present day.
Yeah.
Like, males were very dominant. And
Yeah.
therefore, back then, it was so overly dominant that that's all they talked about was the males.
Right.
And they only used females as a reproduction part of the story.
Yeah. Well, there's 5 heroines in the Bible, 5 really incredible women, and they talk about them. And one of them, a lot of times, they don't even state their names. One of them, they just call her the daughter of, I can't quite remember who it is now. I'd have to look it back up again. It's some big crazy, Hebrew name. But yeah, they mostly, the stories follow the males. And there's little ideas of female in there, like Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary of Magdala, Mary Magdalene.
Right now, I remember, I think you told me about this before, to where the roles got replaced.
Yeah. Well, they pinned Mary of Magdala as a whore, but the fact of the matter is, she was a princess, and her father was the king of Magdala,
Right.
And so she was a princess, and which made her royal. But she was also, by the bloodline, Jesus's cousin, and so they both had an uncle, shared an uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, who is another famous man from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So they were cousins, and Mary of Magdala was also best friends with Pontius Pilate's wife. Pontius Pilate was the governor of Judea. A governor's wife is not going to hang out with a whore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so Mary Magdalene, or Mary of Magdala, she was an important person, and she had lots of money. And I mean lots of money, like only rich people would have that kind of money.
Right,
because
which back then, it's, if you're in royalty, you
have money.
Yeah, and everybody else is like peasants and trying to make a wage for themselves.
Right.
And they had to do it themselves. There was no like companies that you could go and work for.
Well, when in one part of the Bible where it talks about Mary of Magdala washing Jesus's feet with super expensive oils. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the apostles said, why are you wasting all of those incense and oils, to wash his feet, when the money that you could that those oils are worth could feed all of us, for months.
Right.
And well, obviously it's because she was a king's daughter. She's a princess. She's daddy's little rich girl.
Right. And she's
going to buy those things.
She could do what she wants.
Yeah, right. So, there's evidence showing that she was wealthy, that she was the princess of Magdala, and that's, but what it is there are other writings that never made it to the Bible that speak of Mary with Joseph, Mary the mother of Jesus, and that she was the one that was the whore. And not only did Roman soldiers purchase her services, but Joseph also purchased her services. Mm-hmm. But Joseph fell in love with her. So when she was pregnant by who knows who, could have been a Roman soldier.
It could have been anybody. The so-called Johns, if you will. Today.
Yeah, right. So he decided to make her a proper woman, that they would leave Judea and go to Bethlehem, where she could have the baby, and they could sign as husband, wife, and child. So that makes it look all legit.
Right.
But during the Council of Nicaea, when they decided what would go into the Bible and how it would be written, they said, well, if this is going to be the mother of God on earth, the mother of Jesus, she has to be a pure woman. So they made her a virgin that had a baby magically from God, you know, and then they made Mary of Magdala the whore. So
wow, what a flip flop on that, huh?
Right, yeah. So and not only that, but when God decides that he wants this human woman to carry a baby that will be God in the flesh on earth, the Son of God, but also very much part of God because of the Trinity, you know, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So he sent the angel Gabriel to go down to her and tell her that she was going to have God's baby and make her be with child. So did the angel Gabriel inseminate her? Because he was sent to make sure she was with child.
Right.
And to
Therefore,
tell her
could
that
have
she
been
would be carrying God's baby. But the way their story goes, it's all a little bit... Yeah. Like, wait a minute, how did this happen and this happen at the same time, but then this happened and contradicts what happened here?
Right.
You know, how are you supposed to weed through all that, first off?
Right, it sounds like a really bad Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yes, it does. It does. The only thing they're missing is the drugs. Yeah, there's all kinds of things in the Bible that make no sense. Like Noah's Ark.
Oh, yeah.
And how he gets all those animals on there. First off, there are so many species of animal in this world, you couldn't fit them on a boat. That we don't even have a boat big enough today that could carry 2 of every animal on the whole earth. It's impossible.
Well, not even just that. I mean, to put them in the right plane of where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, like 2 penguins walked all the way up from the South Pole to hop on a boat so they didn't drown. Penguins swim anyway.
And well, not just that. You know, look at some of the things like, okay, you get up. Okay, it said that Noah's Ark was like right around like I'm not sure.
Well, it was supposed to have landed in the mountains of Ararat.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember.
So the mountains of Ararat, the tallest mountain there is about, well, not even 1/3 of the size of Mount Everest. Right. So you're telling me that everything on Earth was underwater except for the mountains of Ararat. Well, if Mount Everest is 3 or 4 times taller than Ararat, it must have been sticking out of the water too. But
Yeah.
The book says, no. Only this small mountain was sticking out of the water. The big giant mountain over there, it's under. The water just went up like this for a minute and stayed over top of that mountain.
Yeah, just to cover it up.
Yeah.
Like a sheet.
Yeah. Just for some reason, the water defied gravity and went whoop up the mountain and covered the mountain. No, that doesn't happen.
I remember you told me that there was a completely different story to that, and where the Christians got the whole Noah story.
Oh, yes, from Gilgamesh. Because that story originally appeared in cuneiform tablets from the Sumerians that existed long before Hebrews. And in the Sumerian tablets, Gilgamesh, who was a farmer, when he was warned of the flood coming, he built a boat, not an ark, but a boat, and took 2 of every animal that was in his place. You know what I mean? So probably the stuff from that area of the world,
like maybe like a goat,
like
and
goats,
cows and pigs.
sheep. Yeah, because sheep were big back then. They didn't really have much for cows back then, but they had lots of goats and sheep and chickens and stuff like that. So he probably took everything that people used
for normal
milk, for meat, for eggs, for you know, everything that they would need, and he took 2 of all of them. And Gilgamesh lands in the mountains of Ararat after the flood, and then Gilgamesh pretty much starts Sumeria and becomes the king of Sumeria. So the tale of Gilgamesh is written down, but there's also a creation story written down by the Sumerians where they said that their gods came from outer space and even told them what star system they were from, and that they created us in their image by tweaking our DNA. Hey, back to that thing on what's her name? The lunatic chick.
Oh, Kim Davis.
Kim Davis, man.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Kim Davis.
Yeah.
My problem with Kim Davis is this. Okay, you may be a Christian, and now there's a difference between the Christian wedding ceremony, which involves God and everything in that ceremony.
Well, it depends on what type of ceremony you go through. It depends on what.
Well, that's what I mean.
Is.
That's what I mean. The Christian wedding ceremony part, I can understand the Christians' belief and how, the whole gay, bisexual, lesbian, whatever, is all a sin to them. But when a gay couple goes to a courthouse just to get the government legal document to state that they are joined together, married, share the same last name, share the same tax benefits and everything like that.
And that's what they're mostly going for, is just to have the same...
Well, no, they really do want to be married, but, pretty much I would say no Christian churches are going to marry...
No, it's going to be all court.
It has to be done in the government, not religion, and that's why there's a separation of church and state.
Right.
So, by all means, if she doesn't want to issue a marriage certificate or whatnot to somebody because they're gay, a gay couple,
under her religious belief.
Yeah, under her religious belief, if she feels that her signing that paper is going against her God, by all means, have another officiate there sign it. She doesn't have to sign it,
right?
But she also can't say, well, I'm not going to give them to anybody because God says this and this and this. Oh, yeah, well, then somebody needs to be in that office that is not like you.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I believe that she is such a bigot that she would probably step in front of that person and say no.
Well, of course, my wife, we had a Christian-based marriage.
Did you?
Yes. And the only way that you can get married, if it's not through a religious way, at a church or a synagogue or whatever, is to go to a justice of the peace or a judge and get married in a courtroom.
Right.
And we didn't want to do that. So we had this preacher, minister, marry us. And here's what I think. Okay, nice Christian wedding. And then on our wedding night, she cheats on me. And, that's a whole nother long story. But she cheated on me on our wedding night. And then she cheats on me 9 times with 7 different guys in the whole 9 months that our marriage lasted.
Wow.
So there's your Christian wedding. That's what became of a Christian wedding. I'm telling you, it was something else.
All right, there you go, Kim Davis.
Yeah, right.
What was the outcome of that, by the way?
The outcome of that was she ran off with a friend of mine, got pregnant by him, and then, she got pregnant and had a baby, and the baby winds up being severely autistic.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment he finds out that his daughter with her is autistic, he leaves her alone to be a single mother raising a severely autistic daughter.
On the streets?
Well, no, he didn't leave her on the streets.
Wow, that's good.
Because he was living with her.
Oh.
So, so as it turns out, he leaves her, and then she winds up becoming a surgical technician and has her own place, raises her severely autistic daughter by herself, and I actually told her I'm proud of her. Too bad it took her so long to straighten up and
to her brain to comprehend of life.
Yeah, to become an adult.
Right, to become an adult. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very shitty marriage for me.
Oh yeah.
But now, like I say, Jessica and I have been together for 10 years. We're going on our 11th year, starting February 15th.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Well, that's all we have for now, but we'll see you next time on Reason is Reality.
I'm Jay.
I'm Steve.
And before we go, I'd like to give a few shout-outs. Definitely want to give a shout-out to TJ's The Amazing Atheist.
And the Drunken Peasants.
Colonel Dusty.
The Armoured Skeptic.
And JaclynGlenn.
And always remember, no matter what you've been taught or what you've been told, think for yourself.